And welcome, and we are along with Jerry Howard. He is a candidate for state representative of the 151st District, serving Scott and Stoddard counties here in southeast Missouri. And Jerry, it's good to have you with us today.
Good morning, Tyler. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and it's the campaign season's starting to come to an end, but we still got some time to share with information with the voters out there. And first, just tell us about yourself and your backstory.
Well, first of all, it's a beautiful fall day out there today.
Yeah, finally.
Man, finally, yeah, all the rain's gone. I'd like to begin by saying that I'm a fan of Harry Truman. America was not built on on fear in America, and was built on courage, on imagination, and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand, and that's what Harry Truman said. And that's kind of the way I feel about life and the way things I've done in the past. So my background is primarily a farm background. I was born and raised at Oak Ridge, Missouri, and on a 116-acre farm, and went to school there through grade school and middle school. Then my mother was a nurse, and my father was a farmer, and my mother was starting one of the first nursing homes in Cape Girardeau. And so we moved to Cape Girardeau, and I went to high school at Cape Girardeau Central High School. So, and then after that, I did a number of things. I went in the military, went to Korea, and after Korea, I came back and went to college at University at Cape Girardeau, SEMO University, and I also went on a GI Bill, and that's back when you could get $137.10 a month for everything that you each month, and so. I graduated from SEMO with a Bachelor of Science degree and with majors in agriculture and biology and minors in chemistry and history. And following that, I had to get a job because I had gotten married and had a small son. And my son was just like 6 months old when I had to get a job and graduated from college. So I went to work for a finance company. And so I have finance background, I have insurance background, I have farming background, and then I went to work on the road for a JI Case company after that, and then wanted to get into banking following that, but it didn't work out. Got into politics instead.
All right.
So anyway, as a youth growing up, I experienced a lot of conservative values. My mother and father were extremely conservative, and they went through the Depression. And so I was one of those kids that got to go to school, get 2 pairs of jeans a year, and 1 pair of shoes.
Wow.
So
it's certainly those families that went through that time. It sticks with families going forward.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So it makes me very conservative, regardless of what party you are. When you're growing up and you grow up in the kind of situation I did, you become very conservative in your ideas and your thoughts. And so I am conservative in that regard. And I try to watch how I spend my money. I have to be very careful about spending money because I don't have all that kind of money. I'm retired now pretty much. I retired from the Senate, as you know, after having spent a number of years in the General Assembly, and so I have to be very careful. I do still farm, however. I went back to farming after I retired, and now I have a custom farmer who's going to take over for me, and so it gives me more time to devote to trying to do some things for people.
Sure. And let's get into your career in the Assembly. You spent quite a few years in the Assembly up in Jefferson City, and years past. And just share with people that your time there and what you worked on in the Assembly in Jeff City.
Okay, when I was I've been both in the House and the Senate. So the House of Representatives would not be anything new for me because I had my first term in the House of Representatives. I was able to pass a statewide bill which provided grants and aid to communities and water districts and sewer districts and so forth all across the state to improve their water or sewer situations. And right now we have a number of systems in the state, again, that's in dire shape. We have one right here at Bernie, for example, that is in very bad shape, and they're working hard to try to improve that system, but they've got problems, and they're going to have problems until or unless they can get some more funding. And so that was one of the very first things I did. And then when I went later to the Senate, I did a number of things for agriculture. I did an underground water district. I did, which gives the Southeast Missouri region a responsibility to look after the water, underground water aquifers by checking on irrigation and so forth, and provide them the opportunity to not have Washington EPA say things to them how they ought to be operating. It gives them an opportunity to make sure that things are running smoothly. Farmers are still able to access the clean water they need for their crops and so forth, and yet it keeps EPA off their back. I did a research district also for agriculture. I did the purple paint law, which is for trespass, and the mold wayville eradication bill. And so there's a number of things in agriculture that I did that way. In addition to that, I've done the PKU bill, which provides for youth, young babies in the hospital. I've done health legislation, mental health legislation, etc. So it's not, my wife used to fuss at me, my late wife used to fuss at me and say, why don't you specialize? And I said, well, there's too many things out there to specialize. There's too many people that have things they need, and so I'm a people person. I've always been that way, and I like to do things for people, and it really gives me a lift to be able to do something for somebody that they cannot do for themselves. And that's one thing that you're able to do in the General Assembly, is to help people sometimes that need help. And that I've concentrated that in my service in the past, and I will still try to do that in the future, is to be able to respond to people when they have a problem.
Sure. And very competitive campaign season heading into next week, and you're still out there talking to voters and trying to get your message out there to all the district. And what are you coming across with people, their concerns, or what? And on top of that, what is your message for the voters out there for this upcoming potential session?
Well, one of the biggest things that I find, Tyler, is that people are concerned about how their money is being spent. We cannot give our money away to people who don't have a need for it, or to billionaires, or to people who don't want it. And we cannot keep spending money in a way that's not productive for citizens. The fact is, we can't fix the one-lane bridges if we don't have the money to do it, and we can't serve people and provide the kinds of services like for mental health. We've got an opioid problem, and if we don't have the general revenue in our budget in order to provide those services for people, we're going to just continually deteriorate our society, and that's a bad situation. We have this opioid problem is not getting better, and the drug war that was started several years ago, they called it a drug war, but actually it didn't provide any relief that I can see, except put a bunch of people in jail for minor crimes. And today, excuse me, today we have a problem with opioid problems. We have drug problems all over the place, and they need counseling, they need mental health services, they need all sorts of services like that. And if they don't have the general revenue to put into those services, we're not going to be able to provide those. In addition to that, I'm opposed to privatization for the most part, because anytime you privatize something, you have to have a profit motive. And there's a profit motive in there, and that provides for if you're required to have licensure and certifications and training, how can you do that if you have to do it for a certain amount of money and you have a profit motive? So it's a give and take situation, and so I've always felt like the government could provide services better than privatization, but it seems that that's the way most have gone today, is going toward privatization, privatization of mental health services and privatization of prisons and so forth. And I'm opposed to that. We used to have some serious debates in the Senate over privatization of prisons, and there was a Republican senator from around California, Missouri, by the name of Rohrbach, and Senator Rohrbach was absolutely opposed to privatizing prisons, and I now feel like that he was more right then than ever because of the profit motive and the way that some of these prisons and so forth are run across the country. And so the healthcare situation is terrible in this country. We've had healthcare costs go up, and people have to have some relief from that. But for 10 years now, the General Assembly has been in the hands of people other than my party, and consequently, for this past 10 years, they are responsible for setting up an exchange where numbers of insurance companies could come in and cause the rates for insurance to go down by competition, in addition to which they are responsible for the budget, for cutting higher education costs, for budgets, and causing higher education to have to raise their tuitions. They've also are responsible for, they're responsible for everything that has occurred in the past 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, certainly healthcare, the costs seem like they really escalate, certainly over the last couple of decades, and certainly well above the pace of inflation, and it just seems like it's yes. One of those, daunting tasks just to get those costs in check over time, and that's one of probably the most difficult things any government, whether it's state or federal, to tackle for the country, certainly.
That's true. There are an awful lot of people in southeast Missouri, particularly in our region, that do not, they have to work 2 to 3 jobs just to keep things together for the family. And, I don't know why that is necessarily, except that, they keep telling us that the economy is great. Well, if the economy is great, why are people having to work 2 or 3 jobs to just keep things together and to be able to pay? And healthcare costs are a major portion of everyone's budget. So it's a really a very serious situation. And, things are going to change. I don't know how quickly they'll change, but they will change. People will eventually decide to change those things, and this election may be the way that people will change. I don't know. It's always up to the voter, and you always wait and count votes to see how things are going to be. You can't assume that the general public is going to vote for you, or and just cannot make that assumption, because people change their minds and they decide they want what they want, maybe at the last minute a lot of times.
Yeah. So, anything else you'd like to get into about your campaign?
Well, I'd just like to say that this particular election is a very important election, and people need to really study the amendments. We have an Amendment 1 on the budget that will create a different situation on reapportionment. There's a lot of people out there saying that this will throw southeast Missouri and the Boot Heel together with inner city St. Louis, and that's not correct. That's false. And the fact of the matter is that there's too much population between here and there. You couldn't possibly create a legislative district in southeast Missouri and tag it to inner city St. Louis. This can't happen. And I want us to be able to have enough money in the budget to give the people the kind of education they want, not cut formula, but have enough general revenue that you can add to education, and have enough money in the general budget to provide for additional roads and bridges and fixing those one-lane bridges out there. I cannot understand why, when several years ago we gave the highway department $300 million bond issue, and they said that they were going to 4-lane 25 and 67 and so forth. Well, that hasn't all happened yet, and then they came back after the fact and said, "Whoop! Well, we forgot to put in the inflation factor into maintenance." Well, the Constitution requires, number one, administration comes out. Number two is maintenance, and number three is new construction. Well, what happened? I think that we were misled. That's what I think. Now, why we were misled, I don't know. But I think we need to build trust, not debt, in our state and in our nation. And I think also that we need to be aware of our right to vote and to exercise our right, and to be very careful reading those ballot issues. As Harry Truman said, America was not built on fear. America was built on courage, on imagination, and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. And that's a quote from President Harry S. Truman.
Not bad to end on. Not bad.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, Jerry. And Jerry Howard's running for state representative of the 151st district. That is mainly Stoddard, but a few communities in Scott County as well.
Yes, that's correct. We got Chaffee, Van Duzer, Oran, and Salcedo over in southern part near Sykeston. And then everything west includes all of Stoddard County, which is advanced all the way to Bernie. So, yeah, it's quite a district, and it's a unique district. And I'm really very fortunate that I've been able to meet as many good people in this district as I have. We've knocked on doors in Chaffee and Van Duzer and Oran and Salcedo and Dexter and Puxico and Advance and Bernie, and been all over, and even Perkins and and up that way. So, yep, we've been around, and hopefully people will make a choice, and they'll be happy with their choice.
Sure, and we appreciate you spending some time with us and talking with the viewers out there about your campaign and with all their concerns out there. And we'll be seeing what happens on Tuesday, November, is it 6th?
November 6th, that's right.
Tuesday, November 6th. Yeah, be sure to get out and vote. And Jerry Howard is running for state representative of the 151st district. And thank you again, Jerry. And
thank you, Kyle.
We'll be looking forward to next week.
You're welcome. Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and the voters on the issues and things that should concern all of us.
Sure. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
On November 6th, vote for Jerry Howard, candidate for state representative for the 151st District. Jerry Howard is committed to the advancement of Scott and Stoddard counties. He's previously served over 15 years in the state legislature and earned legislative awards as Southeast Missouri's state senator. Jerry Howard played an integral role in appointing Bloomfield native Jack Matthews to the State Veterans Commission in bringing the Veterans Cemetery to Stoddard County. Jerry Howard has been recognized for his service to our seniors, educators, and the heart of our local economy, our farmers and ranchers. He's motivated to represent you and bring sensible leadership to Jefferson City. Vote Jerry Howard for state representative on November 6th.